Yeah, she's got some nice long hair. And you know that she's
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron, and welcome back to a breaking news episode of the Unbearable Sports Podcast. So for those out on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, you might have seen the initial live response. So if you don't follow us out there, make sure to follow us so you can see the live reaction that we had. But I thought I'd gather my thoughts, see exactly what was going on, and come back and break down the Khalil Mack trade. One of the biggest deals that we've seen since the Khalil Mack trade. So we definitely have to break this down. Who are the winners? Who are the losers of this trade? Was it too much? Was it too little? And really kind of see what, as a Bears fan, should we be thinking? So just to kind of kick things off, I first want to break down just how I felt when it did happen. So if you watched it, I was definitely like discombobulated to say the least. It was absolutely shocking. I did not expect that it was going to happen. I literally did a video saying 5 reasons why the Bears would not trade Khalil Mack. And here we are today with them trading Khalil Mack. Now, the reasons why I thought they weren't going to trade him was because the salary. The Bears, we only saved $6 million in salary cap space this year. This shows me a lot about Ryan Poles because it shows that he's looking for the future, because you're trading a very talented guy that you know he's probably going to come back and do really well this year. But you trade him so that you have more cap space down the road. I think that's the big reason here is it's not like you're giving up this year, but you're more so trying to create a better situation for the following year by clearing up a whole bunch of cap space by getting rid of him right now. I was also shocked too because you have a veteran leader, and what do you know? We got rid of him. Now, the one thing that I was initially shocked at, but then kind of calmed down to my senses, was the compensation that we got for Khalil Mack, because we ended up getting a second round pick from the Los Angeles Chargers and a 6th round pick in 2023 from the Chargers. So, initial thoughts, I was like, where's the number one? And a lot of people out there on Instagram, I see them commenting. And when it initially happened too, a lot of people saying, we got fleeced. We got screwed. we got taken to the shed. We have another Ryan Pace. We should have never hired another Ryan out here because we should have gotten a number one. But the more that I think about it, the more it makes sense, because when I go back to that video on why not to trade Khalil Mack, it was because he doesn't have a lot of value. Think about it. You have this aging veteran, good player, but he's kind of at the lowest level of his value right now because he's coming off an injury. So a lot of us have forgotten how dominant he is. So yeah, you could make the argument that they're trading low, but still you're getting rid of him so he's off the books and that you can have some sort of draft capital. So that second round pick is kind of par for the course for what the Rams had to give up in order to get Von Miller. So to me, you have another aging veteran lineman that is very, very good. And same thing with Khalil Mack. You bring him in, we get a second in replace. So do I love it? I don't love that trade happened. I'm less shocked now, and it's kind of sinking in a little bit. But let's actually go through that second round pick, because that's probably the biggest thing that is impacting us right now. Like I said, the salary cap, we are still paying Khalil Mack $24 million of dead cap. So he counts $24 million against the cap. So we only saved $6 million in this move. So it's really not for today, it's for next year. So 6 million can't really get you much. And I'll actually be going through the free agents in a couple days. So just look out for that. Make sure to subscribe, and you'll see the defensive free agent targets that we'll be targeting with that $6 million in mind. But let's go over to the pick number 48. So that's the new pick that we have. We now have 2 second round picks. It's kind of nice to at least have a little bit more draft capital. Now, something I'm interested to see, because I heard a lot of people say this too, that there's some disappointment because we didn't get more picks, more fifth, sixth, fourth, thirds types of stuff for Khalil Mack. Now, yet again, I think that it would be a different story if I was coming here saying we got a third and a fourth. I think that sounds a lot worse than we got a second. So to me, I'm glad that we got the second, and who knows, maybe Poles does want to trade down and get more draft capital. But for the sake of it, let's look at what we have at number 48, or stuff that we should be looking out for. Now, I posted this out on Twitter, but if you don't follow me out there, so the people that we should be looking out for at that 48 spot. So, wide receivers, if you're interested in wide receivers, we're looking at Christian Watson out of North Dakota State and Sky Moore out of Western Michigan. So, both are good wide receivers that are out there. Christian Watson is a phenomenal athlete. Sky Moore is just a smaller, quicker type of a guy that's out there. George Pickens out of Georgia and David Bell out of Purdue, all guys that we could potentially be getting there. So some okay wide receiver talent is at that pick. But then this is actually where it's actually kind of exciting. The offensive line talent should be at that number 48 spot. So if we want to have some more depth to this offensive line, we still don't know what we're going to do in free agency. But here we have Bernard Raymond, we have Daniel Falele, Sean Rayan, Tyler Smith, and Jamari Slayer. So we have a lot of interior guys and tackles that we could potentially be getting. So Falele is that enormous guy. I don't know if we actually want him because he needs to be a little bit quicker, but Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan, he's an offensive tackle and actually a very good offensive tackle that should be there at that pick. This is all according to the Draft Network. I use their mock draft simulator, and they have like a predictive board based on all these other boards that they've seen and mock drafts that they've seen. So, yet again, just like the PFF salary cap numbers, I'm trusting the experts here at exactly where someone might be going. But then those interior linemen, though, Tyler Smith and Jamari Sailor, a lot of these guys, I'm really excited to see just some extra depth at that interior spot. Also, Dylan Parham out of Memphis, that center that we've talked about having explosive burst. So, from an offensive line perspective, we could potentially be bringing someone in. So, a lot of you might be thinking too, is there an edge rusher that we can replace him with as like a one-to-one swap? Now, I don't really want to see that because we're going to be comparing whoever we bring in with a Hall of Famer. But Boye Mafe out of Minnesota, who's been impressing like crazy, I don't think he's really going to be there, but there's potential that he might be there. Arnold Abikati out of Penn State. It's a little bit late, so give me a break on some of these names. But he's another edge rusher that's very talented, or even a Logan Hall out of Houston, who has kind of got that inside-outside versatility. So to me, though, also you have a lot of depth at that offensive line position, but then linebacker is another spot that there's some talent that we could potentially be bringing in at that spot. Chad Muma out of Wyoming, a pod favorite. Damon Clark out of LSU. Brian Asamoah out of Oklahoma. And Leo Chanel out of Wisconsin. There's some really good talent that could potentially drop at that linebacker spot. But the last ones that I'm just going to cover is just the secondary. You have Tariq Woolen, Roger McCreary out of Auburn, or Darion Kendrick out of Georgia. There's some good corners that we could potentially be getting, and some safeties too that might drop is Lewis Sign out of Georgia and Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. So maybe those two safeties are there. If not, then you don't go safety at all, because if they are, you kind of run up to the board and make sure that you get them. But really, when I'm looking at this, the talent at that number 48 spot is offensive line, corner, and also inside linebacker. Now, I did actually completely forget interior D-line, and really the one to look out for is DeMarvin Neal out of Texas A&M and Travis Jones out of UConn. So some pretty good talent there. So overall, there's still people that we could select. Now, I don't want to stress that we need an edge rusher with that, because we do have Travis Gibson. I think it says a lot about how good he was last year. We lasted majority of the year without Khalil Mack, and we still had good production on our edges. I still think we probably need one other edge to kind of have that three-person type of a rotation. Maybe they love Itachu. I don't think so, but it is something to at least look out for, because maybe we just bring in a veteran with all of this. So that's it for the draft pick. The only other piece that I just want to talk about, and we can keep this thing short and sweet. Like I said, the free agents, we're going to be talking about that in a couple days. So make sure to stay tuned because we could talk about who you could potentially be getting. Now, why did the Bears make this? So we have the initial return today as basically a second rounder and $6 million in cap space. But the exciting part is next year, we have a projected $121 million in cap space. $121 million. And here's the kicker, too. The only big name free agents that we have to re-sign are David Montgomery and Roquan Smith. So to me, it's like Roquan Smith, no brainer. You re-sign him, to a King's ransom or freaking trade him for a King's ransom. You cannot let him go for nothing. He is your defense right now, so you have to re-sign him. And that might be what they're trying to do right now. What I like is you have all this extra money next year, so that is definitely should be a priority. Now, David Montgomery as well. You guys might already know my take. I don't like signing running backs. I don't like paying them big money because they're easily replaceable. It's not saying he's not great, but it is something just to be on the lookout for is, does he end up getting re-signed? Those are our only two people that really should be re-signed. And that's awesome. That is a great problem to have. So we're going to have a lot of money next year. So this is something, though, that nobody seems to be talking about with this. So when we're looking at free agency, it's so easy just to say, like we did in our offensive one, that this person gets $6.5 million a year. This person gets $8 million a year. But if you look at how a salary cap is structured, it doesn't go 8, 8, 8, 8. It might go 6, 8, and then 10. So a lot of times that first year is the cheapest year, and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Something that I want to see how they tackle free agency is they're probably going to try and make it as light as they can this year because you have a lot of cap penalties because of Ryan Pace. So you probably will see them bring in free agents, and maybe if they're those multi-year deals, you kind of really soften up the front of it so that the second year, since you have $121 million, you start putting more into that year so you can get better people today. So it's not like you're tanking and you're wasting an entire year of this team. So I'm warming up to the idea of what they did because I think with this, I like keeping the guy and trying to win right now. But honestly, when you're looking at this and after you take a deep breath and then you get your bear goggles on, it's all good. So hopefully we're able to have somebody come in and kind of be that veteran leader. Trevis Gibson, he keeps getting better and better and was doing well as that starter. But I still feel like we need somebody else to just kind of assist with this. But that about does it for this. Like I said, keeping it short, keeping it quick, no ad reads. For me, you might have gotten some on some of the pods, but I apologize for that. But thank you guys so much. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want. Just search for Unbearable Sports and Unbearable Sports Podcast. We're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.